Talk, Stephen, a very good morning to you, about magistrates' rights and how they're now going to be shortly able to sentence people for longer in various situations. But let me ask you first of all about non-crime hate incidents, because this is a very sort of, hot topic, I suppose, at the moment. I fear that it's happening a lot more than people think. You know, legally speaking, I mean, if you're not committing a crime, why are the police even involved?
Well, that's true, Mike, and these are fundamental questions about justice. I mean, the obvious problem with non-crime incidents is that they're not crimes.
Well, right.
So why are we recording them? Why on earth have we done this? Now, it goes to the heart of everything, Mike, because I think for the last sort of 20 years, lawyers who are not like me have often tried to portray the law as some sort of benevolent God who will look after everybody and keep everybody safe and make sure the country is lovely, fine and bubbly. Well, non-crime hate incidents are law. They're perfectly lawful, but they're awful. And it proves that the law is not some benevolent God that's going to fix all your problems for you. Actually, what you have to do is pay attention to your law and make sure that you or the politicians on your behalf don't make a bunch of bad ones. Right. Because it strikes me that non-crime incidents are a bunch of bad laws. Pointless waste of time, as if we have thousands of officers who've got nothing to do all day other than record these things. I mean, what a total waste of time. What good is it supposed to do? There's a second ill in our country at the moment, Mike, and I call them the people who don't understand the causes of things. Yeah. The people who don't understand that things like riots are actually caused by strong emotional feeling and really bad response by government, and not necessarily caused by people in America sending a tweet. You know, they just don't understand the causes of things. And the people who don't understand the causes of things think that non-crime incidents are relevant, but they're not. They don't lead to anything else. Alison Pearson is not going to become some mass murdering killer. It's not going to happen. We are literally wasting all of our time and money on nonsense.
And it comes back, does it not, to common sense? Because surely if you were sitting in a police office or a police station, if you could find one in your neck of the woods, you would have somebody there saying, what are we doing this for? Why are we sending 2 police officers to Alison Pearson's house? Why did we send them to Julie Bindel's house? You know, why are we sending them to people's houses all the time who are slightly less high profile, and wasting so much time writing it up, putting it before some committee or other, and then declaring it not to be a crime anyway?
It comes back to the absence of common sense. Yeah. We have lost common sense. And this is just another very striking example that there is no common sense in our leadership. And it goes back to a point that Brendan was making about this belief in leadership by experts. Well, the experts are clearly wallies. You know, just, and I that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I've got a phrase I use called clever stupid. Yeah. I mean, I grew up amongst academics. I'm perfectly aware that people who are extremely bright can also be a bit lacking in practical skills.
Exactly.
You know, we've always known this, and our great saviour as a nation is that we believed in common sense. Well, let's get it back. We need it back.
Yes. Well, I often say, and more often than I would like to say on this show, you know, didn't anybody say to them before they did this thing that it might not be a great idea? And it seems as though nobody's asking those questions in any meetings that are being held, whether it's in the NHS, whether it's in government, whether it's in the diplomatic area, you know, all the things that the police are doing. You suddenly think you just want one person to pop up and go, are you sure about this?
Yeah, well, Essex Police have made a complete joke of themselves, and it seems that every day they then go on to double down and get themselves into even more shtick. You know, you're in the hole, stop digging. I mean, this is just why on earth they're proceeding with all of this is beyond comprehension to normal people. And I think that this is we're at a point of tension and stress now where I think, you know, it's time for us to sort of pat them on the head and go home. You know, you're not behaving normally. Could we please have common sense back? And I would. It's a political position, Mike, but I would just get rid of non-crime incidents.
Yeah, well, that would make sense.
Waste of time.
And just a final word on the story we were going to talk about, but it sort of got overtaken. This new plan that the magistrates are going to get greater sentencing power. Now, forgive me for being sceptical here, but this is all coming through the Lord Chancellor's office, Shabana Mahmood, and it says here that the change is the latest step in the government's plans to tackle the inherited crisis in our prisons, will allow magistrates to hand down prison sentences of up to a year. This will help to tackle the record remand population in jails and address the Crown Court backlog, which is also at an historic high. Well, I don't see how it will if you've got nowhere to send them.
Well, that's true, and they won't deport the foreign criminals, which everybody knows would be commonsensical, because that would be 11,000 of them spaces freed up. You know, the government is almost refusing to do practical and obvious things that would actually help, and instead running around like a sort of voodoo priest. But this policy, I mean, it's a practical policy. It's pragmatic. It's in our tradition, in our original tradition, when we were commonsensical. Magistrates aren't professionals. They're not experts. They're volunteers. And in fact, if your listeners should consider volunteering, because we run best as a country when we run as a volunteer state. This brief experiment we've had of 25 years of pretending that we're an expert-run state has been nothing but a complete failure. So I'm not inherently opposed to this policy. It could be a bit scary if you're worried about magistrates using the power too much, but I sincerely doubt that they will. It's a practical measure to reduce a backlog. What's interesting about it, Mike, is that, again, a lot of what this government is doing is just what the civil service would have done anyway. And this policy would have happened had there been no election. So it is just the civil service running things. And I think more journalists, if you'll allow me just to say, need to challenge the government on whether it's got any ideas itself or if it just does what the civil service tells us.
Yes, that's a very good point. I shall make sure I raise that the next time they come on. Stephen, thank you very much indeed. Stephen Barrett, barrister and writer there, talking a lot of common sense